Can you talk about being other-centered when you're writing?
Absolutely. I think that's the beginning place, isn't it? About communication. Communication that is effective and that connects is considerate of the other person. So for me, tonight, I think we're talking about writing for or writing up interviews, correct? That's what we're going to talk about? May I focus on that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's focus on that. So, if I'm often asked to interview and then write up my interview as an article for various magazines. So, using that context, considering other-centeredness, there are several facets. There are actually at least 3, if not more. But the first thing you have to start with is the person you're interviewing. It's terribly important to research that person's background, their specific work, their philosophy. You want to research to the place where you're able to ask unique questions that are valuable to them. So if you're asking unique questions, that means you are also seeing what other people have written about them because you don't want to write the same thing over and over again. You're not writing or copying or repeating a press release, but it should be something that's unique. So if you're going to be interviewing them about specific projects, then you also need to do your homework about the project. And the 5 W's often work with research, the who, what, where, why, when, those questions. So you really need to do that kind of work. And then you need to also consider the audience to whom you're writing in that magazine. For example, I do interviews for which I also deliver them to various magazines. So each magazine is unique. Each magazine has a unique audience. So I need to know that audience and what they would appreciate or find fascinating or find um, something new, something unique. Again, you just don't want to be repeating the same old thing that they could find anywhere. So it always needs to be unique and new. And of course, I also want to consider my eyes are watering here. Maybe you can edit that out.
I can.
Anyway, allergies here. Oh my goodness. Anyway, you also have to consider the times in which you're living. So you want to discuss always universal themes and universal ideas, but you also want to connect what you're writing to what's going on in our world today, and especially in the world of your audience. So there's a lot of homework to be done. It's I think the biggest part of any kind of work that I do with interviewing and writing articles is really the preliminary research. I think that's the most important thing, to be other centered. You have to know who the other person is to be other centered, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. I really like that. It's like it's really like a selfless attitude to have going into it.
Well, that's what you're here for. That's at least that's what I'm here for. And that's why I'm doing this tonight. I want to encourage you and I want to encourage others. I'm 74 now, so I want to leave a legacy. You know, I want to leave with others what I've learned through my lifetime. So it's very important to me. Your one life doesn't last forever, but you want your ideas and the things that God has taught you in your lifetime to live on through others.
Mm. That's so important. Um, let's see. What what's the most difficult part of your job as like getting these interviews and then transcribing them into these articles?
Well, the biggest challenge is just the volume. It's really interesting now because I just am sought all the time for my insights about, especially for me and movie and media, that movies and media, that's what I write about a lot. And it's been so interesting to me to and surprising that people have sought me at my age. For example, Tyler Perry had me go all the way out to LA so that I could interview him about his book, Higher is Waiting. And they knew exactly how old I was. I asked them, I said, "You guys know how old I am?" And they did, no. And they said, "Well, that's exactly why we're doing this, because we want your wisdom and your breadth and depth of wisdom." So uh, what's been surprising to me is I am busier today than I think I've ever been. It's more the volume. Uh, I think of just nonstop writing and interviewing. And I, it's been very fortunate because or I guess I've been fortunate, but I haven't really sought out this work. People have sought me. So I taught at the university level for 25 years, performance studies or performance communication, which does involve writing, of course, especially if you're doing screenwriting or any kind of writing a script. But I taught radio, television, film, oh, every kind of performance imaginable over new technologies. But as then I retired, and then was when people started seeking me to write for magazines and to interview and so forth. So I think that at this stage of my life, I think people find me credible and they want some insight that I might share with them. So it's really not been a matter of me finding work, it's me responding to them. One thing I might tell you about my life and about performance studies, which is my field, and that is that it's very broad in terms of culture around the world, global culture. It is also very deep in terms of history. So, and then also traveling and living all over the world as I have, I think that that's why people have sought me, because they see that I have a depth and a breadth that might be unique, which I'm more than eager to share.
Wow. So it seems like at first, so tell me if I'm wrong, but at first you were putting in the work to try to put yourself out there, and then now after a while, now you don't even have to put yourself out there. People are just contacting you.
Well, no, I never put myself out there to begin with. Actually, I worked on a PhD, which involved a tremendous amount of research and writing. You can imagine, as part of my work at a Christian university for 25 years. So, as part of that work, also, I published books because I was on the front line of that field. I was one of the first PhDs in the field of performance communication and performance studies. I studied here at the University of Texas, and it was a brand new program there, and it was a brand new program worldwide when I started there. So consequently, I had to write the textbooks because they weren't there. So those textbooks got out there, and of course, a lot of my writing just got out there. I didn't really put myself out there so much as trying to serve my students. I also tried to role model for them the ways that they could use their talents and their skills, and one of them was to be a writer. And so I would do a lot of writing to role model for them. So I guess, when my experience has been that when you're serving other people and you really care about other people and you want the best for them, then people seek you out. People want they want to um, they want to find you credible, first of all. I think having a PhD probably helps me to be somewhat credible, and I have had multiple books published, but it's been it's really been amazing that people have wanted me to talk with them about various issues of performance work as well as writing.
Wow. So helping other people makes them want to help you as well.
Well, think I think it's just the attitude of helping other people that people pick up on. You
Right.
know, I think that most of us are pretty turned off by narcissists who are only there for their own benefit or their own promotion. That's pretty it's a real turnoff for most of us. I think, I think when you show the fruits of the spirit, of God's spirit, which are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, people see that and they're drawn to that. They're drawn to God's spirit in you, which are those kinds of qualities. So my life has not been one of ever of trying to promote myself. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. If I may, I share my testimony because it fits in here.
Mm,
Of I started off as a music major and English minor. I ended up reversing those eventually, English major, music minor. But when I first started off, I needed a scholarship. So I ran for the Miss Eugene pageant, which was at the University of Oregon in Eugene, Oregon. I won it and I won a scholarship and all kinds of amenities. But I also realized at that time that I really wanted to go into coaching and teaching rather than primarily performance. I've been a performer all my life. You could see that on my resumes. But the my primary calling has been to mentor and to coach and to teach others from the very beginning. And I think I think having that sincere attitude of wanting to be a teacher and caring about others has drawn people to my work. It's just amazing. I've just never been one to be all about promoting myself, but really promoting all of us who are on the team, of doing good work in this world, especially for God's purposes.
hmm Okay, well that's really cool. I like that. Let me see. The next question I have for you is, what are some final tips that you would give to new writers out there?
Okay, well, let's go back. There's so many kinds of writing that we might talk about at other times, but let's just focus right now, let's say on writing up interviews for magazines. All right, so basically, I think in terms of thirds. So when I'm organizing an article, and um, the first third would be to introduce your audience to what you're going to be sharing with them. And you need to start with hook, which you need to do in most kinds of writing. You need to hook your audience, right? You need to do that even with screenwriting. So you need to hook them. You need to captivate their attention, their interest in that first third. And then the second third is where I go into the questions that I've asked the person I've interviewed. And again, they are not just um, standard questions. They're usually questions that have come out of my research. For example, one of the most interesting experiences I had was with David Oyelowo. I don't know if you know him, but he played the role of Martin Luther King in Selma. He's he's probably one of the leading well, he's an African English actor. So he's a brilliant actor. But he is able to perform an American dialect, which he did for Selma and many other great movies. He was available or wanted me to interview him for United Kingdom, which was a really interesting movie. It was a movie about actually the colonialism of the British. when they were in Africa and were colonizing various areas of Africa. And they were involved, of course, in South Africa, but also in Botswana, which was right next door to South Africa. And w- I just found so interesting that Botswana did not have apartheid like the Africans did. And were able to, the government was run by Christian principles. And I asked David, he played the role of Seretse Khama, who was the king's son of Botswana, who went to uh, London to be educated. And then what happened was he ended up marrying a Caucasian girl. And eventually the Botswanan people did come to love her, and they called it the United Kingdom. And there wasn't, for many reasons, there wasn't the apartheid that was right next door in South Africa. But also, I had discovered that missionaries had had a profound influence on the Botswanian Botswanian government, and the way they ran so much of their government was according to Christian principles. And so David Oyelowo and I discussed that. And it was really interesting because I had one interview with him, and he said, I want you to interview you. I want you to interview me again. And so let's have a second interview. But we went into some of the research that I had done, and he was so grateful for the insights. And I've had that experience over and over again. So anyway, that second part of the article would be something that's novel and new and unique, that's penetrating, that is, the questions lead to a depth that most other articles haven't on that project. And then, of course, the third section is your summary, and you're summarizing basically what you had said in the first two, and then you want to make sure you have a memorable last sentence. I think in talking of memory and something that's memorable, may I share another insight about my work?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm a performer, I have performed a lot of great literature and taught a lot of great literature. So I try to write with some of the same devices that I have found in that great literature, literary devices, rhetorical devices. For example, Shakespeare is full of literary devices, and he used those literary devices not only to add richness to thought as well as sound and to the reading of the text, but to help people remember what he had said, because there would be repeated sounds of vowels or repeated sounds of consonants, and you could remember. Or he might use other literary device like all the world's a stage, which is a metaphor. So those were deliberately there to help the actor remember the lines, but also the audience. And so I've tried to add wherever I can alliteration, assonance, these literary devices without making it too scholarly. I want to use language for the audience to whom I'm appealing, but I also want to get some richness in terms of content, context, as well as the language itself. So I think maybe those are some of the unique aspects of my writing. I know that I just have a lot of movie producers, directors seeking me to write for them about their project. I mean, if you look at my IMDb page, that's only a small portion of the very, very notable movies that I've publicized. But I think maybe it's because of some of these elements that I have shared with you tonight that are unique.